Hello, I am Esther Lee Rosing, Communications Director at the Global Economy and Development Program. I am here with the Vice President and Director of the program, Brahima Coulibaly, and we're here to sort of reflect on the past year and some of Cool's priorities and thoughts as we exit 2023. So Cool, what's your assessment of 2023 in terms of sort of the state of the global economy?
Yeah, I think 2023 has been, again, another very challenging year. So if we can remember how we even entered into 2023, we'd experienced a series of shocks that were already beginning to take a toll on the global economy. And 2023 was a year when we saw those impacts begin to seriously materialize. We had the COVID-19 pandemic that was among those shocks, and we had inflation begin to rise. And then we had the Russia invasion of Ukraine that brought about geopolitical shock, but also a dislocation in the food and energy markets that further amplified that inflation dynamics. And in response, central banks raised interest rates, to highest levels we've seen in several years, and that added more to the cost of living crisis that we've seen. So we were hoping that once we enter 2023, we'll see some of those effects to begin to subside, and that we would see increasingly the economy beginning to recover more robustly. But we were hit again by new shocks. In early 2023, we had some financial stability risks with the decline and dismantlement of the Credit Suisse, and then also a failure of SVB Bank, Silicon Valley Bank, and Signature Bank. Right? But at this stage, my judgment is that those financial stability risks are contained. And then later in 2023, we got again hit by the crisis, Israeli-Hamas crisis that have added more to the geopolitical tension that were already prevalent. So really it's been another year again of shocks, and it's really unprecedented to have an economy be hit with so many shocks in such a short period of time. And we're seeing those social economic impacts. Poverty levels are rising by most estimates, 150 million people additional among those living in extreme poverty. We see inequalities rising. We also have a lot of learning losses from the pandemic. So those are all part of what we need to work to address in the future.
A grim outlook or reflection. So as you look to 2024, what are some of the key issues top of mind for you?
As we look to 2024, but first let me say the unprecedented shocks that I mentioned had hit the economy. In the face of that, I think we've seen the global economy display a great deal of resilience. Right? So we will hope to see that resilience continue into 2024. But given the number and magnitude of the shocks, I think there's now emerging consensus that we'll see global growth slow, perhaps in the range of 3% in the near term, and then at least compared to the past several decades. And we hope that past that near term we can enact policies that could revive growth. So that's going to be one reality of 2024. The second reality is that the socioeconomic impact that I mentioned, I think, are going to persist. So it would be important to strengthen social safety nets and also to show a great deal of global solidarity to support those in low-income countries, but even in advanced economies who are disproportionately impacted by those shocks. And in 2024, I think inflation is going to be key. We've seen some moderation in inflation in recent months. And if that moderation persists into 2024, it could be a pivotal moment where we'll see central banks now beginning to lower interest rates. And along with that, we're going to see a reduction in the cost of financing, which would be very much welcome for both nations struggling with sovereign debt situations, as well as households also struggling with the high cost of borrowing. And then the Other progress that I'm really hopeful that we'll see more of in 24 is on climate change. The reason I'm hopeful about those projects is that they can see them being catalyzing investments in new technology innovations that can in turn bring down the cost of renewable energies. And once the cost has fallen, I think that can clearly facilitate more transition toward renewable energies. But that would still need to be accompanied again by financial support to the low-income countries who are still disproportionately exposed to the effects of climate change. And global cooperation is important, and I think it's going to continue to face challenges. The effect of the Russia-Ukraine war, I don't think that's going to dissipate, unfortunately, next year. The Israeli-Hamas war, we hope that it stays contained. It's have, of course, devastating effects on lives on both sides. And we hope that it can stay contained and we can move to a peaceful resolution. If not, then that's going to be among the geopolitical tension. And then you have the tension surrounding independence of Taiwan that gets meshed into this overall greater power competition between the U.S. And China. And I don't see that also going away next year. So I think global cooperation is going to be challenged. But perhaps arguably the most important risk to watch for, to me, would be the U.S. Presidential election. That could indeed be the black swan. I say that because if we end up with an administration that deprioritizes global cooperation, I think it's going to impair our collective ability to respond to the global challenges, and that we do have a few. I mentioned climate change. There's also issues around technology and governance of ethical use of AI, cross-border taxation, etc. So those are all really global issues that we cannot address effectively unless we've strengthened global cooperation.
So cool. Reflecting back in this year, what has the global program done to address some of these really important and timely issues?
Yeah, I think my colleagues and I have really been quite busy. I think some of the challenges we've mentioned, the challenges that we have taken on as priorities within the global economy program, and I can just list a few. We've been heavily involved with the reform of the multilateral banks, the development banks. A couple of the reports of the G20, for example, on the subject were authored by members of our group. We've also initiated a series of roundtables to discuss with independent experts, both from the global north and global south, on how we reform the international financial architecture. So those roundtable conversations are ongoing, and they're going to persist into early next year, and we'll have some reports and deliberation that we would make public. I think I also mentioned insufficient progress on the Sustainable Development Goals. 2023 was like a mid-year review. Our colleagues who work on those issues have done a great deal of stock taking on where we are and how far we've come and how much more we need to go. And I think there's a emerging consensus that we're nowhere near where we need to be to make progress. So they've also put forward some proposals on how we can accelerate progress. And of course, education. Right? There's been a big learning loss during the pandemic, and we are ramping up our efforts on a education system transformation with the launch of the Global Impact Network. But this is just to name a few.
So what other, it's a busy upcoming year. Yeah. So cool. Any last thoughts, parting words as we say goodbye to 2023?
Yeah, let me just say that it's been quite a unique set of challenges that really the global economy has faced in the past few years. It's really unprecedented, as I mentioned. But in the midst of all of that, I'm quite optimistic that collectively, I think we can rise up to the challenge. I would also like to use this opportunity, of course, to express the gratitude to all of our partners, all of our viewers, all of our contributors for what's been a very productive year. And I wish they stay tuned. I hope they stay tuned for what's to come next year. We have a lot of programming coming up. Until then, my best wishes for a restful, festive season, and then for a prosperous and fulfilling new year.